Hello, welcome to the channel, Darkness to Christ. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing why the Bhagavad Gita is far superior to the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran, and all Abrahamic scriptures. Okay, now over Christmas, I've been a little bit ill. I had a cold, then I got COVID, and it gave me the opportunity to learn more. I followed some channels on YouTube who are very good. One called Philosophy Cat, I'll put a link in the description. And she was talking about the Bhagavad Gita. So I thought, let me buy the Audible version and give it a quick listen. And the beautiful thing about the Bhagavad Gita is that if you just listen to the scriptures, it only takes probably an hour if you listen to a reasonable speed. And one thing that touched me immediately is I felt truth resonate in my spirit straight away. And the teachings remind me exactly of how Christ taught, because it's taught in parables. And it really resonates with the inner self. It's always turning you back within yourself, not to the external, to the material world. And what the Gita refers to always is the self within. And that is also what I always say, that is the Christ within. When I talk about Christ, I'm not talking about Jesus per se. I'm talking about the Christ within me, the Christ within you, and the Christ within every human being that's ever existed. And the whole point of religions and spirituality is to point you back to the inner self, the inner Christ. And that's where the truth resides. The only way you can know truth is not externally, but internally, once you get in touch with your inner spirit. And the problem with the Abrahamic religions and Abrahamic scriptures is, what I found is they're just stories that people tell. You know, the Jews have their story, we're the chosen ones. The Christians have their stories that Jesus came, died for their sins, and now they're the chosen ones. And the Muslims have their view that Prophet Muhammad is a messenger. In my opinion, they're all just stories they tell themselves, but for the most part, they're a load of rubbish. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated, because Jesus did bring the truth, and he returned us to the Christ within, but along the way, the messages got lost and they've made Jesus into some kind of idol and created Christianity, which is false. And people have stopped seeking the Christ within and they started worshipping Jesus, the story that the Christians gave us. Whereas when you go into the scriptures from the Gita, it's maintained, pointing us back to the self. And it reminds me of Christ, how Christ taught. It was in parables and it resonated with our spirit. And when you listen to the parables, just like the first time I listened to Christ and his parables, the same thing happened when I listened to the Gita and the parables and the stories of the Gita. It's like an aha moment. Truth. I'm hearing truth. The opposite of when you listen to Abrahamic religions. You know, when you hear Abrahamic religions and you're just like, this makes no sense. That's a load of rubbish. It just seems full of hate. Like when you see all the wars and murders gone throughout the last 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years of Jewish, Christian and Islamic teachings, they do not know the true Father. And that's exactly what Jesus said to the religious people at the time, and what we say to all the religious people now. You neither know me nor my Father. Now obviously it says you are of your father the devil. I don't necessarily believe that they're of their father the devil, but I do believe that they are worshipping a false idea of a God, not the true Father that Christ points us back to, that the Gita points us back to, and that I believe I have returned to. And you know that it's the true love of the true Most High Father. Okay, so I would recommend people, especially if you're a subscriber and you like my type of videos, to recommend reading it. It's very, very profound. It's only very short as well, so it's pretty easy to read and understand. And regardless of that, I will actually be planning to make some videos on the Gita and the similarities between Christ. So if you're not going to read it, stay tuned for more videos. And before I end this video, I also want to point out, you notice how the ego always trying to trap you. And all of a sudden, let's say that I've read the Gita now and I'm like, Gita's amazing. I don't feel any egotistical need to say, I'm a Hindu now. This is how I believe the ego can trap us, because I think that's one of the mistakes I made when I found Christ's teachings. Is my ego wanted to say, I'm a Christian now because I believe in the teachings of Christ, but I never really said I was a Christian as such. But I did start learning from a load of Christian YouTubers and I was getting into the Christian ideology. But once I got into the Christian ideology, things didn't really make sense. Whereas when I was in the spirit and I resonated with Christ's teachings, things made sense. But once ego got involved and it was like, become a Christian, and then you sort of go along with Christian teachings, I fell away. Now that may be because the Christianity teachings is wrong, maybe the Gita teachings are right, but regardless, I have no egotistical need to get involved with any labeling. Not that it's necessarily bad per se, but the soul cannot resonate or belong to a religion. The spirit, the soul belongs to the Father, and you need to return to the Father. So if you find truth in a certain part, you don't have to join egotistically. You know, you don't have to become a Buddhist. There's loads of stuff I love in Christianity. There's loads of stuff I love in Buddhism. There's loads of stuff I love in Hinduism. But that doesn't mean that I egotistically have to become egotistically involved with that religion. And all that ends up happening, especially in the Abrahamic religions, is everyone starts begging you, oh, you're going to become a Muslim now. You know, sometimes Muslims will watch my videos and they'll be like, they'll see that I don't believe that Jesus was necessarily, or I don't believe that Jesus is God, and I believe in monotheism, that there's one God and God is not in multiple forms in terms of as a man. And they'll say, oh, that's the same as us, you're a Muslim, why don't you come and join Islam? It's like, I'm not egotistically involved in anything. And instead of me joining Islam, you should be doing what I say and returning to the Father, because the Father is beyond any religion and egotistical belief. And in some ways, when the ego is insecure, it has to have others to belong to. So there's strength in numbers. If you're part of Christianity or Islam, that's your team, and then you want to get the numbers up because you're insecure per se. Whereas when you're returned to the Father, you don't care. I don't care if all the Christians come at me. I don't care if all the Jews come at me. I don't care if all the Muslims come at me, or the Buddhists, the Hindus, whatever. I know that the truth is with the Father, just as Christ did. And you don't care what the religious people say. You're standing on that ground. And then when you come across spiritual brothers and sisters who get it the same way, your spirit resonates with them. Like sometimes when people who are spiritually awakened comment on my videos, immediately just from their comment I can understand, okay, they get it. Whereas when religious people comment and they'll either criticize what I say, or they'll be like, oh yeah, that's sort of what we do, come and join us. I understand that they're not really getting it from a spiritual point of view. They're just trying to get egotistically involved in silly belief systems rather than spiritual knowing. Okay, so hope you liked the video on the Gita. I'd encourage you to either buy it, read it, listen to it, or stay tuned, subscribe, and I will be doing more videos in depth on explaining how it makes more sense. Okay, God bless everyone, Happy New Year, and stay well. Goodbye.